showing the way to the charity shelter. Victoria Belmont shouted across the luxury lobby of Seattle's Summit Crest Financial at 10:47 a.m. Her target was Caleb Montgomery, a black father in patched jeans, holding his daughter Amara's hand tightly. Caleb only came here to check an old trust card to pay his daughter's $12.850 school tuition. But his rough look and dusty boots set off the angry prejudice of the arrogant manager. Trapped alone in the modern lobby, facing rich sneers and private security guns, Caleb kept a terrifying silence. What secret lies behind his worn-out card that can instantly crush Victoria's pride? Just before that cruel shout froze the whole lobby, the morning had started like any other quiet, tired morning for Caleb. His alarm buzzed at 5:15 a.m. inside a small rented apartment on the edge of Seattle. The rent was $785 a month, and every wall showed it. Paint peeled near the ceiling. A pipe knocked softly behind the kitchen wall each time the heater kicked on. Caleb rubbed his eyes and sat up slow. His shoulders ached from a night shift hanging drywall. Sawdust still clung to the creases of his knuckles. He smelled like plaster and cold coffee from the day before. He walked into the kitchen and cracked 2 eggs into a pan. The oil hissed and popped. He toasted 1 slice of bread and cut it into small triangles the way Amara liked it. 6-year-old Amara patted and wearing mismatched socks. Her hair stuck up on one side. She climbed onto a chair and watched her father cook with sleepy, trusting eyes. On the wall above the table hung a row of crayon drawings. Bright suns, crooked houses, a woman with yellow hair, smiling. Caleb looked at that drawing every morning. His chest tightened each time. Sarah had been gone 2 years now. Cancer had taken her fast, faster than anyone expected. Caleb still kept her reading glasses on the nightstand, untouched. He set a plate in front of Amara and kissed the top of her head. She smelled like the strawberry shampoo he bought her last week. She hummed a tune between bites, feet swinging under the table, completely unaware of the worry pressing on her father's chest. The old radio on the fridge hummed a weather report, low and steady, almost drowned out by the heater's rattle. Caleb barely heard it. His mind was already running through the day's work list. His phone buzzed on the counter. An email glowed on the screen. Seattle Academy of Arts. Tuition due by noon. Exactly $12.850. If unpaid, her spot would go to another child. He read the email twice, then a third time, hoping the numbers might change. They didn't. Caleb's stomach dropped. His hand gripped the edge of the counter. He had exactly $214 in his checking account. Amara looked up, egg on her chin. "Daddy, is today the day I start art school?" He forced a smile for her. Inside, his mind raced through every option he had left. There weren't many. After breakfast, he knelt by his bed and pulled out an old metal box. It was rusted at the corners and dented on one side. Inside sat a single black card, worn smooth at the edges. His grandfather Harrison had given it to him years ago, folded inside a short note. The note read, "When you truly need to protect what matters most, bring this card to Summit Crest." Caleb had never used it. He barely remembered Harrison's face anymore. His mother had cut ties with that side of the family long before Caleb was born. He ran his thumb over the worn edge of the card, feeling the tiny scratches from decades of handling. The plastic had gone soft and warm, like leather left in the sun. Growing up, Caleb heard his mother mention Harrison only a few times, always in a tired, guarded voice. Old money, old pride, and old silence had kept them apart for years. He unfolded the small handwritten note one more time, tracing the shaky, careful handwriting with his fingertip. He wondered just for a second what kind of man wrote words like that and then let so many years pass in silence. But right now, with tuition due and no other options, that old card was the only thread left to pull. He slipped the card into his shirt pocket and buttoned it shut. His flannel shirt was faded at the elbows. His jeans had a patch sewn over one knee. His work boots still carried dried mud from the job site. He looked in the cracked bathroom mirror and straightened his collar anyway. Some habits from his mother never left him. By 9:30 a.m., he and Amara stood at the bus stop under a gray Seattle sky. Rain tapped softly on his shoulders. He held her small hand inside his large, calloused one. The number 42 bus hissed to a stop. They climbed on together, rainwater dripping off their coats onto the rubber mat. Caleb's plan was simple. Get to Summit Crest Financial. Check the account tied to the card. Pull out exactly $12.850. Pay to school before noon. The bus rattled over a pothole, and Amara giggled, bouncing slightly in her seat. Rain streaked sideways across the window glass, blurring the gray storefronts outside. An older woman across the aisle smiled at Amara's laugh. Caleb nodded back politely, grateful for one small, ordinary moment of kindness before the day ahead. He had no idea what waited for him in a building like that. The bus dropped them 2 blocks from downtown. Caleb held Amara's hood up against the rain and walked the rest of the way. Summit Crest Financial rose in front of them like a wall of glass and steel. Sunlight bounced off its tall windows even through the clouds. The smell of wet asphalt mixed with fresh coffee from a nearby cart. A car horn echoed somewhere down the block, sharp against the quiet morning drizzle. Caleb stopped at the base of the steps. He watched well-dressed men and women glide through the revolving doors. Their coats looked warm and clean. Their shoes made no sound at all. He looked down at his own boots, caked with dried mud from a job site. He looked at his jeans, patched at the knee with uneven stitches. A cold, heavy feeling settled in his chest. What if they laughed at him? What if Amara saw that look on someone's face, the one that said you don't belong here? He had seen that look before, aimed at his father, and once, painfully, aimed at himself in a hardware store years ago. That old memory still stung, even now, tucked away somewhere deep behind his ribs. His feet slowed. Part of him wanted to turn around and find another way, any other way, to get that tuition money. Amara tugged his hand. She looked up at him with wide, hopeful eyes. "Daddy, will I really get to paint today?" Something in her small voice cut through his fear. He thought of Sarah, of the promise he made at her hospital bed. Protect her. Never let the world make her feel small. Caleb squeezed her hand and took a breath. "Yes, baby. Let's go find out." They climbed the wet steps together. Cold air blew down from a vent above the entrance, brushing across Caleb's neck. A security guard stood near the door, his eyes tracking Caleb's boots, then his jacket, then his face. Before the guard could speak, an older man stepped out from beside the doorway. His name badge read Thomas. His face had deep lines and kind, tired eyes. Silver hair peeked out from under his cap. Thomas crouched down to Amara's level. He pulled a strawberry lollipop from his jacket pocket and offered it with a warm smile. Amara's small hand trembled slightly from the cold morning air. "There you go, sweetheart," Thomas said gently. "That'll warm you right up." He looked up at Caleb and gave his shoulder a light pat. "Don't you worry none. Everybody's got a right to walk through this door." Thomas leaned in and lowered his voice. "Counter 4 inside. As for Jessica, she's good people." Amara's small hand relaxed slightly in her father's grip. She looked back at Thomas and gave him a shy, grateful wave. Thomas waved back, his smile widening under his gray mustache, the kind of smile that made strangers feel like old friends. Caleb nodded, throat tight with gratitude he couldn't quite put into words. He thanked Thomas and pushed open the heavy glass door. The moment they stepped inside, the world changed completely. Cool air, scented faintly with something expensive, wrapped around them. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. White quartz floors stretched out under blue LED lighting. Somewhere near the back, a coffee machine hissed steam. The faint clink of glass cups drifted across the open lobby. Caleb's boots left small, dark prints on the pristine white floor. He noticed it immediately. His shoulders tensed. He tried to step lighter, but the marks kept showing anyway, small and dark against all, that gleaming white stone. Every few steps, someone's eyes flicked toward him, then away, then back again. A woman in a fur-trimmed coat pulled her purse closer to her body. A man near the counter lowered his newspaper just enough to stare, then quickly looked away again. Amara's small hand tightened around his fingers. She pressed closer to his leg. Caleb pulled the old black card from his shirt pocket and gripped it tightly. He kept his eyes forward and walked toward counter 4, just as Thomas had told him. He didn't make it halfway across the lobby. A woman in a fitted navy suit stepped directly into his path. Her heels clicked sharply against the quartz floor. Her blonde bob swayed with each precise step. Her name, read Victoria Belmont, branch manager. Her eyes swept down from Caleb's face to his muddy boots, then back up again, slow and deliberate. Her navy suit fit sharp and tailored, not a single wrinkle out of place. A thin gold watch caught the LED light every time she moved her wrist. "Can I help you?" Her tone carried no warmth at all. It sounded more like a warning than a question. "I'm here to check a trust account," Caleb said quietly. He held up the worn black card. "This card belonged to my grandfather." Victoria's lips curled into a thin, unpleasant smile. She glanced at the security guards near the entrance and gave a small nod. "This is Summit Crest Financial, not a pawn shop," she said loudly, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "Do you understand what kind of institution you've walked into?" A few customers turned to look. Caleb felt heat rise up his neck. His jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. Amara pressed closer against his leg, sensing the tension even without understanding all the words being said. "I understand exactly where I am. I just need someone to scan this card." Victoria stepped closer, invading the small space between them. Her expensive perfume mixed sharply with the sterile, clean scent of the lobby. She tilted her chin up slightly, looking down at him despite standing several inches shorter. "Sir, homeless men wandering in off the street with stolen cards is a serious problem for us." Her voice rose again, aimed at the whole room now. "Would you like directions to the state charity shelter instead?" Amara's eyes filled with tears. She buried her face against her father's leg, her small shoulders shaking. Something cold and sharp moved through Caleb's chest. Not anger exactly. Something older, heavier, aimed at protecting his daughter above everything else. "My daughter is standing right here," Caleb said, his voice low and steady. "Please lower your voice." Victoria ignored him completely. She turned toward the security desk and raised her hand. "Escort them out. Now, they're disturbing my VIP clients." Thomas rushed in from the entrance, his face full of worry. "Ms. Belmont, please, let the man speak to Jessica first." "That's all he's asking." Victoria spun toward him, eyes narrowed like blades. "Stay out of this, Thomas, or I'll have your badge by lunch." Thomas's shoulders sank. He stepped back, helpless, his kind eyes locked on Caleb and Amara with quiet apology. His hands opened and closed at his sides, the frustration of a man who wanted to help but couldn't. Two young security guards moved in on either side of Caleb, their hands hovering near their belts. The lobby had gone eerily quiet, every customer now watching. Caleb held Amara tighter against his side. His heart pounded hard, but his voice stayed calm and even. He would not let fear win, not in front of his daughter. "Just scan the card," Caleb said again, holding it out toward Victoria. "If it's not valid, I'll walk out myself. You won't need to touch me." Victoria's smile turned razor sharp. She snatched the card from his fingers, careful not to let her skin touch his. She held the worn card between two fingers, like it might leave a stain on her hand. She walked to the nearest counter and slapped the card down on a handheld scanner. The device beeped once, twice, then flashed a hard red light. A small crowd had gathered near the counter now, phones half raised, watching the strange scene unfold in tense silence. "Invalid card. Transaction denied." The old scanner simply couldn't reach the secure Apex tier system. It wasn't built for accounts like that one. She held the scanner up for the nearby customers to see, as if presenting evidence at a trial. Victoria's smile widened into something cruel and satisfied. "A fraud, exactly as I thought. Using a stolen card in my branch." She turned to the guards, voice sharp as a blade. "Detain him. Call the Seattle police right now." One guard grabbed Caleb's arm. The other reached for a taser, clipped to his belt, thumb hovering near the switch. Caleb's pulse hammered in his ears. His grip on Amara's hand tightened until his knuckles turned pale. Amara screamed, a raw, terrified sound that cut through the quiet lobby like glass breaking. Caleb dropped to his knees on the cold quartz floor, wrapping both arms around his daughter, shielding her small body with his own. The floor felt like ice against his knees. Somewhere nearby, a wall clock ticked, impossibly loud in the frozen silence. The air conditioning hummed on above them, a low mechanical breath that seemed to grow louder with every passing second. No one moved to help. Wealthy customers stood frozen, phones raised, capturing the moment instead of stopping it. Caleb pressed his lips to Amara's hair. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm not letting go." The guard's hand tightened around Caleb's arm. Somewhere close, a taser clicked as it powered on. Then every screen in the lobby went dark at once. A high, piercing alarm rang out through the entire branch. Every teller's monitor flashed the same red warning. Apex tier account activated. Primary owner present in branch. Victoria froze mid-step, her confident smirk melting off her face. The guards loosened their grip, confused, glancing at each other. Through the tall glass windows, 3 black armored SUVs pulled up outside, tires hissing against the wet street. Doors opened in perfect unison. Men in dark suits stepped out, moving with quiet, practiced precision toward the entrance. A tall man in his late 50s walked in first. Silver hair, sharp gray suit, eyes scanning the lobby fast and hard. Behind him walked 4 more men, quiet and alert, their eyes sweeping the room in practiced, careful patterns. The lobby doors hissed shut behind them, cutting off the sound of rain outside. Every step they took echoed off the quartz floor. He spotted Caleb on the floor and moved straight toward him, ignoring everyone else completely. The guard stepped back automatically, sensing something had shifted in the room's balance of power. The man stopped in front of Caleb and bowed his head deeply, a full 90 degrees, right there on the lobby floor. "Mr. Montgomery," he said, voice thick with emotion, "we have searched for you for 2 years." The entire lobby fell into stunned silence. Even the soft jazz music seemed to fade into nothing. Victoria's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her eyes darted to her monitor screen, then back to Caleb, then back again. The man introduced himself as Arthur Vance, Executive Vice President of Montgomery Global Holdings. His voice remained calm, controlled, deeply respectful. "Your grandfather, Harrison Montgomery, passed away 2 years ago," Arthur explained gently. "He left everything to his only living heir. You, sir." Caleb slowly rose to his feet, still holding Amara close against his chest. His mind struggled to process the words. Arthur continued, his tone steady. "Montgomery Global Holdings owns 55% of this very bank. You are the majority shareholder, Mr. Montgomery." He paused, glancing briefly at Amara before continuing. "Your grandfather set up protective monitoring on this account the day he wrote you into his will. The moment that card touched any scanner in this building, our security team was notified within seconds," Arthur explained. Behind the counter, Victoria's monitor blinked to life again. A number appeared on screen, impossibly large, impossibly precise. $14, $250, $118. 63. Account holder, Kayla Montgomery. Security clearance. Apex tier. Supreme owner, Summit Crest Financial. Victoria's face drained of all color. Her knees buckled slightly, and she gripped the edge of the counter to stay upright. The man she had mocked, sneered at, and nearly had arrested on the very ground she stood on. Whispers spread through the lobby like fire through dry grass. Customers lowered their phones, staring now with wide, disbelieving eyes. A young teller near the back covered her mouth with both hands. Someone else dropped a pen, and it clattered loudly across the silent floor. The same woman who had pulled her purse close earlier now stood frozen, her face flushing red with sudden embarrassment. Thomas stood near the door, tears welling in his kind old eyes, a small, proud smile breaking across his face. Victoria's hands shook violently. She stumbled forward and dropped to her knees, scrambling to pick up Caleb's worn wallet from the floor. "Mr. Montgomery, please, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know," she stammered, holding the wallet out with trembling fingers. Her voice cracked with panic. Sweat beaded along her hairline despite the cool, filtered air of the lobby. Arthur Vance stepped between them, his expression firm and unmoving. "Ms. Belmont, you are terminated, effective immediately. No evidence." He turned to two men in suits standing near the door. "Contact the state licensing board. Her financial license ends today." Victoria opened her mouth to protest, but the words caught somewhere in her throat. Nothing came out except a broken sound. Every eye in the lobby watched her sink lower, the woman who moments ago controlled the entire room. Caleb watched her kneeling there, shaking, and felt something unexpected rise up inside his chest. Not joy, not revenge. This was the real test now, quieter than the one before it, but just as important. Would he use this sudden, staggering power to crush her the way she had tried to crush him? Part of him wanted to. Part of him remembered the taser, the cold floor, and his daughter's terrified scream. But another part of him, older and steadier, reminded him who he wanted to be when the dust finally settled. He thought of Sarah again, of every quiet lesson she taught him about dignity, patience, and grace under pressure. Caleb reached down and gently helped Victoria to her feet. She flinched at his touch, eyes wide with shock. "I don't need you on your knees," Caleb said quietly, his voice steady and calm. "That's not who I am." He looked directly into her eyes, not with hatred, but with quiet, unshakable resolve. "These clothes are dirty from honest work. My character never was." Victoria's lips trembled. She said nothing more, only nodded once, before security gently guided her toward a back office. Caleb turned away from her and looked down at Amara, whose tears had finally begun to slow. He wiped her cheek with his thumb and offered her a small, tired smile. "It's okay now, baby. We're okay." Arthur Vance gestured toward counter 4, where a young teller named Jessica waited, eyes wide with disbelief. "Mr. Montgomery, please, let us handle whatever you came here for today," Arthur said warmly. Caleb walked forward, Amara's hand still wrapped tightly in his own, and set the worn black card on the counter. "I need to send a payment," he said simply. $12,850.50 to Seattle Academy of Arts. Jessica's fingers moved quickly across her keyboard, hands still slightly shaky from everything she had just witnessed. She glanced up at Caleb once, a small, genuine smile breaking through her nervousness. "Right away, Mr. Montgomery," she said softly. The printer beside her whirred to life, warm and steady, spitting out a single crisp sheet of paper. The transaction processed in seconds. A receipt printed out, crisp and clean, at exactly 11:30 a.m. Caleb held the small slip of paper like it weighed more than gold. In many ways, to him, it did. He knelt down to Amara's height and showed her the receipt, pointing to the school's name printed at the top. "You're going, baby," he said softly. "You're really going to art school." Amara's face lit up through her drying tears. She threw her small arms around his neck and squeezed tight. Before leaving, Caleb walked over to Thomas, who stood quietly near the entrance, watching everything unfold with a proud smile. "You didn't have to be kind to us," Caleb said, placing a hand on the older man's shoulder. "But you were." Thomas's eyes glistened. "Kindness never asks for a reason, son. It just shows up when it's needed." Caleb turned to Arthur. "I want Thomas promoted. Head of branch security, effective today. Triple his current salary." Arthur nodded immediately, already pulling out his phone to make it happen, without a moment's hesitation. Thomas's hand flew to his chest, stunned into silence for a long moment, before a wide grin broke through. He glanced down at Amara, still holding her lollipop stick, and let out a small, disbelieving laugh. 31 years I've worked this door, Thomas said quietly. Never once did anyone offer me anything close to this. Sir, I don't know what to say, Thomas managed finally, his voice thick with emotion. Say you'll keep treating people the way you treated us, Caleb replied, a small smile tugging at his mouth. Outside, the rain had finally started to slow, gray clouds pulling apart to reveal thin streaks of pale sunlight. Caleb led Amara through the glass doors and out onto the wet steps, the air smelling fresh and clean now. A sleek black car waited at the curb, door already open, ready to take them wherever they needed to go. The leather seat inside looked warm and dark, a strange contrast to the cold quartz floor they had just left behind. Amara skipped down the steps ahead of him, lollipop stick still clutched in one small hand, humming softly to herself. Her boots splashed lightly through a shallow puddle, sending small ripples across the wet pavement below. Caleb paused for a moment at the top of the steps and looked back through the glass at the lobby. Inside, life had already resumed. Tellers worked their counters. Customers returned to their business, the shock slowly fading into memory. Yet a few of them still glanced toward the doors, half expecting to see him walk back through. But something in that building had changed today, quietly, permanently, in a way numbers on a screen could never fully capture. Caleb slipped the worn black card back into his shirt pocket, right over his heart, where it had always belonged. It wasn't the balance that mattered most to him. It never had been, not really. What mattered was the promise kept to Sarah, the tuition paid, and his daughter's laughter echoing behind him now. He walked down the steps and climbed into the car beside Amara, pulling the door shut against the cold. As the car pulled away from the curb, Amara pressed her face to the window, watching the wet city pass by. Daddy, she said softly, can we get pizza to celebrate? Caleb laughed, a real laugh, one that reached all the way up into his tired, relieved eyes. It was the first laugh like that in a long, long time, and it felt good in his chest. Anything you want, baby, he said, pulling her close against his side. Anything at all. Amara rested her head against his arm, eyes growing heavy from the long, strange morning behind them. Her lollipop stick slipped from her fingers, forgotten now, resting quietly on the seat beside her. Caleb watched the city lights blur past the window, feeling, for the first time in 2 years, truly at peace. Outside the window, Seattle's gray sky continued to break apart, sunlight spilling slowly across the wet, glistening streets. Somewhere behind them, inside a glass building full of quartz floors and cold judgment, one woman sat alone with what remained of her career. She would spend the rest of that day packing a small box of personal items, walking past co-workers who no longer met her eyes. And somewhere ahead, a little girl with paint-stained dreams rode toward a future her father had just fought, quietly and fiercely, to give her. Months from now, Amara would sit in a bright classroom, brush in hand, painting a picture of a man in a flannel shirt. She would title it, in careful 6-year-old handwriting, My Dad, the Strongest Man in Seattle. Caleb would keep that drawing in the same rusted metal box, where the old black card once lived alone. He would look at it every morning, before work, the same way he once looked at Sarah's smiling face on the wall. 2 small treasures, side by side, worth more to him than any number on any screen. Some people judge a man by his boots, his jacket, or the mud on his hands. But the truest measure of a person never lives on the surface at all. It lives in what they carry inside, long after the world has stopped watching. It lives in a promise kept, a daughter's laughter, and a kindness given, without ever expecting anything back.